I'm getting up the hill regardless. And so the wheels are spinning. Izzy's absolutely clenching the seat. And I get honestly, about 90% up the hill and then realize at the top there's this tiny little street.
They take time to talk to you and find out about you. And
I think it's quite humbling, actually.
The things that you think that you thought matter cease to matter completely. If you want to do something different with your life, you've got to take those positive steps to make it happen.
You're listening to the GHT Overland podcast.
We hope you're having a great week. We are welcoming spring with impatience for the warmth of the sun. After surviving a root canal, it's now 100% making all our final checks and prepping for our Oregon to Colorado trip. Still delayed due to the famous, in quotes, supply chain issues. We're taking advantage of that extra time to move as much stuff into storage as possible while pulling our hiking and camping gear out of storage. And that felt amazing to reconnect with that coveted gear after a harsh separation a couple of years ago. Then it's double checking the adventure list of things still needed that were buried far too deep in storage while researching hidden gems surrounding some of our national parks in Utah, Arizona, and California. So if you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. We're thinking it would be really fun to do a video series exploring some very remote hidden gems most people don't know about or don't have the time to explore. So, funny thing, one of the advantages of consistently talking to other full-time overland travelers is learning from their experiences. Case in point, this week's guests. Prior to talking to them, I was 100% convinced that all the planning and all the best intentions would not be worth the effort. You know, don't overthink it, just go. You hear it over and over and over again from every guest. And I was 100% cool with that. It was what I loved doing in my 20s. I would literally load my 1979 orange Ford F-150 to go camping just about every weekend. Once loaded, I'd open the Oregon or Washington Road Atlas and randomly pick a spot I'd never been to before. There's just something extra cool about going into the unknown and doing nothing but exploring. Romantic as that is, you will hear in this week's episode when experience faces off with romance. You can guess who won that as I paused with a moment of epiphany. I do love a few great hours of research, so now it's clear focus of going slower and really exploring each area, not finding out later we were just miles from a do not miss spot. I'm sure we'll miss some, but we will really do our best to kind of slow down and find those hidden gems. I'm also finding that Gaia GPS is super helpful in this process. They've got layers to help determine specific cell phone coverage areas so we can stay connected, to U.S. Forest Service maps, which are great for national park areas, to public and private land layers to make sure that we're not on private land but on public land. The list goes on. They even have an aviation layer so I know where we can put the drone up legally. Of course, with the plethora of layers and options, it can get overwhelming, but I think we're getting it figured out as we plan short routes and download maps for offline use. We're very much looking forward to Overland Expo next month in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we'd love to know if you're going to be at Expo West this year. If you will, be sure to watch our social medias for what vendor booth you will find us at. There are few things in life as awesome as meeting you. We found a lot of similarities with this week's guests and enjoyed jumping back to overlanding in Europe. They spent years in the normal rat race of life, pursuing careers and financial stability. They've renovated properties in their spare time while dreaming of different ways of life. In 2018, they said goodbye to their old lives, making their dreams of full-time travel a reality. They sold their house and most of their stuff, quit their jobs, and bought a motorhome to road trip Europe. Although they knew they might need to return to real life after a couple of years, it was 6 months in, and they realized that going back to their old lives was not what they were going to do. In 2021, they swapped out that motorhome for a proper overland truck so they could travel further off the paved roads and explore more. As a quick intro to Phil and Izzy, and I love the terms they use in Europe. So, as Izzy explained it, Phil is ex-military, practical, with bags of common sense and a real can-do attitude. He's happiest when being active and making new friends because he's Irish. And Izzy is a multitasker and works well under pressure. She loves reading, learning new things, chocolate, and of course, a glass of red. I think you're going to love this episode. Just know going into it, you also might be faced with an epiphany. And there's no shame in moments of change. So, Izzy and Phil, thank you for taking the time today, and welcome to the GHT Overland podcast.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for having us. It's a real pleasure to be with you guys.
Yeah, we're super stoked to connect with you. It is roughly 11:17 in the morning here. I think it is evening where you guys are. What time is it there?
It is. It's 21:17. We're on the Black Sea coast of Turkey right now. It's dark and it's snowing.
It's dark and it's snowing.
Oh my gosh.
Cold. I hope your heater is in good shape.
It's in excellent shape. Thanks very much to Phil. Yeah.
Nice job, Phil.
I wasn't expecting snow.
Yeah.
No, we weren't either.
No, we've had snow for a couple of weeks now. So given that it's sort of almost mid-March, it's been a bit of a surprise, a bit of a shock, actually. So, but there's plenty of it, that's for sure.
So you guys are on the Black Sea in Turkey, and I think most of us, at least in the U.S., immediately get concerned with everyone in Europe regarding the disaster going on with Russia and Ukraine. Is that impacting you guys day to day?
I think, geographically, we're quite close, probably about 200 or 300 kilometers away from Ukraine. Wow. As the crow flies across the sea.
180 miles it is to Ukraine.
Okay.
It's impacting us in terms of fuel costs. Certainly, Turkey's seen a 55 to 60% increase in the cost of fuel over diesel over the last probably 2 months. But other than that, no, we're not aware of any disturbances here at all. I think Turkey's been a little bit quiet about whether they support or don't support. Well, they don't support, but they haven't gone all out with the sanctions like the States and the UK have done. But no, otherwise it's not impacting us at all.
There's certainly an awareness, though. When we speak to people, local people, there's somewhat an air of caution and on people feeling unsettled.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. We're thousands of miles away, and you're a couple hundred miles away, so that's completely different.
Yeah, yeah.
So you guys go by the Gapticators, which is a brilliant name. How did you come across that name? Where did that come from?
Well, when we probably about 4 years ago now, we made the decision to sell everything, to sell our house, to sell everything we owned, and to hit the road. We had a friend who jokingly one night over a beer said, "Oh, you're going to take a gap decade," and it just sort of it just came out of that. Really, we adopted the name, we liked it, and although I hope it's a lot longer than a decade, it just sort of stuck really.
That's awesome. So reading about your story was super fun. I understand you've been traveling full time since 2018.
Yep.
What inspired like road tripping and more specifically overland style travel for you guys?
I think it's probably different for both of us, actually. Personally speaking, I joined the army very young. I was 16. I grew up in Northern Ireland, right on the border of the north and south. I would see the troops fly in. And this is during the 70s, so there was a lot of trouble then. And I used to think, this is amazing. Look at these guys in their armored vehicles and, the helicopters. This is great. I'm going to join the army. And so I joined the army at 16, as soon as I could. 25 years later, I left with this. I was very fortunate. I was able to travel whilst in the military, and it didn't stop. That desire, that hunger to see more of the world and appreciate this fantastic planet stuck with me. So, and then from there, but just before Izzy sort of kicks in, from there, I think we're very fortunate. I love motorbikes. We used to tour Europe by motorbike. And we would go off, we hired an RV in California for 3 weeks, and that was incredible. And so we've always been out doing and trying to see as much as we possibly can.
I think from my perspective, I was very lucky. I grew up with parents who took us on holiday every year, but that meant getting in a car with a tent on the roof and going somewhere in Europe. We quite often went to the south of France. And so for me, going on holiday was about seeing things and doing things. It wasn't about going and lying on a beach or looking at something. It was about being involved, and getting into a car at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning and going and getting on a ferry and being in a foreign country when you woke up was so exciting. And that excitement has never left me. I still feel it now. Every time we jump in the cab for, a couple of hours on the road, I have that same feeling inside.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
I like it that they call it a holiday. We're going to take a holiday.
Yeah.
Vacation here, holiday there. All same.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, you guys started in a motorhome and now have a full-size overland truck. Can you give us the basic rundown on your current truck, along with any name you may have given it?
Yeah, so we have, it's an MAN LE 2000. Obviously, it's four-wheel drive. Diff locks, all the usual sort of dubbings with these trucks. It is actually an ex-military truck. It started life as an RAF snowplow. So it was very well looked after. Even though it's 21 years old, it is still in really good condition, very low mileage. And it was converted about 9 years ago. And it had a little bit of a refresh a few years ago. And then when we bought it, we thought, right, there's quite a few bits and pieces that we need to upgrade because we're going to be living in it full time. And so we thought, right, we need to do an upgrade. So, but the base vehicle itself is a MAN truck. It's a 4.5 litre turbo diesel engine, 180 brake horsepower, so not very much actually. It's 8.4 tons, so it's actually on the small side in terms of trucks. So it's quite high. It's 3.92 meters in height. And that's it. And the whole thing, the habitation box sits on an independent 4-point subframe. So that's in a nutshell it.
She's called Tonka. I don't know if you have Tonka toys in the States.
Of course we do.
So she's called Tonka. She's small but mighty.
That's
She's a
awesome.
game old girl. Yeah, she sort of trudges up the hills. I mean, we sort of made the decision, I suppose, when we bought her that, you know, we wanted to slow down a bit anyway. We felt like we were rushing from place to place and missing stuff on the way. So that the idea of sort of trundling along at 50 miles an hour was actually quite attractive, really. And we really enjoy that style of travel now.
That sounds super awesome. Yeah, a really cool looking truck from my perspective. Looking at it on Instagram, looks very like you guys can get pretty much anywhere you want to go. Size isn't limiting you as to a destination, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, the two motorhomes that we had before we bought the truck were actually a good sort of 1.5 to 2 meters longer than the truck. The one area we struggle with a little bit is height. I mean, particularly in countries like the UK, where there are lots of narrow lanes and overhanging trees.
And old stone bridges, you know, I think anywhere where there's a lot of culture, you tend to get these buildings that encroach into the road, or, you know, you've got these gorgeous old bridges. I suppose, you know, in the UK, everything's signed, so it's not a problem. But certain other countries, such as, you know, we've just passed through Greece and Turkey, there isn't always signs on the bridges. And so you do have to err on the side of caution.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Well, it looks pretty cool to me. So let's go through a few details on the truck real quick. How much fuel can you carry, and how far does that take you?
Well, this is the Achilles heel really for me. And Izzy and I are always sort of talking about this, because one of the things I recognized from the off really is that we need a bigger fuel tank. So we carry about 130 liters. So in your terms, I think it's about 40 gallons. So we do have a couple of jerry cans, but the actual fuel tank is relatively small, and it's definitely on the top of the list of upgrades. We probably get on average, about 12 miles to the gallon. So we're probably talking in the region of sort of, I suppose, at best, 400 miles, very much depending on the terrain. So clearly, if it is off-road and we're up and down mountains, then it's going to be less. So I would like it to be double that. Well, no, I would like the fuel tank. Yeah, obviously, I like the miles per gallon to be better than what it is, but it is what it is. And a bigger fuel tank would be a really good addition. Yeah,
I would think so. I wasn't expecting such a small tank. That's probably limits you a little bit. Yeah.
I think at the moment, because we're sort of in, you know, Turkey, which is, although it's Asia, it's fairly sort of mainland Asia, that there are fuel stations everywhere. But obviously when we sort of get a bit further afield, I think it is definitely something we're going to need to think about a bit more carefully.
Yeah. I think as well, especially as we run diesel heating as well. So it only sips it, of course. It doesn't take very much, but it's always a consideration.
How long have you had Tonka?
7 months now. I'm looking at Izzy, about 7 months. So not long, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still finding our feet, really.
Yeah. So.
And then how much water do you guys carry, and do you have any specific way of filtering water if you need to?
So we have a 300-liter freshwater tank and a 70-liter, hot water tank. So we have a total of 370 liters. We have a 3M filter that I fitted. So I think we're okay. Certainly in Europe and the parts of Asia that we're in, it's not really a problem. I think if we went further afield, then we would maybe have to consider at least looking at, maybe something a little bit better. But at the moment, we're really happy with the 3M system.
Yeah. And we spent, 3 years in motorhomes with 100 litres of water. So we're sort of quite good at managing what we use and being careful. It's become second nature, really.
Okay, that makes sense. Any specifics on the electrical setup that's worth going through?
Yeah, we when we bought the truck, it actually had a really good Victron setup. So we have a multi-plus, which means we've got permanent inverter, an MPPT with 600 watts of solar on the roof. And one of the biggest things that we did, we took out the lead acid batteries that we had. So there was 400 amp hours. No, there wasn't. Sorry, 200 amp hours of lead acid, and we replaced that with 400 amp hours of drop-in lithium Life PO4, which has been a game changer. It really has. Yeah. We added a few small upgrades in terms of dongles because the equipment wasn't the Victron Bluetooth generation. It was the generation sort of before that. So we put a couple of smart dongles in so we could read what was going on. And I mean, before when we had our lead acid, we were, every sort of 3 or 4 days, we were finding we were just having to plug in somewhere. Now, I don't think we haven't plugged in for about 2 weeks now. And, we're running 2 diesel heaters and not even really thinking about power usage, to be honest.
So the batteries, we have 4 200 amp hour batteries. So we run a 24 volt system with 12 volt step downs. So I suppose it's 400 amp hours at 24 volt.
Yeah, we've got a lot of capability, but we're both running laptops, every day for 8 hours a day. So they're quite power hungry.
I think for some people, they might think, oh, that's actually not very much, but we're not electric only. We have gas as well, actually. So we have diesel heating, diesel for the hot water, and we have gas just for cooking. We like gas for cooking. We did talk about switching out to induction. We actually carry a little induction hot plate as well, which we can use, in the out of winter. So we're pretty happy actually that we've got the best of sort of both worlds. We carry 2 gas canisters in the garage space. So I think all in all, it works pretty well. Mm.
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty awesome. How often are you having to currently go up and clean off the solar panels if it's snowing?
Yeah, every
and who gets
hours.
that job?
Yeah,
well,
you can imagine.
Take a guess.
You can imagine Chris who gets that job. So I went up just the other day. I mean, we must have had a foot of snow. I went up, I cleared the snow, and I mean within 10 minutes. And of course, the minute you clear, you can see what's coming in. And I mean within 10 minutes, it was zero again because they was just completely covered. So. Yeah. I suppose it's that sort of, those occasions when you've got weeks of snow that you really, if you're not on the move, and we struggled really because we were in the mountains in Turkey. The snow was incredible. I mean, they do a pretty good job here actually keeping the roads clear, but the roads, there's no barriers on these mountain roads, and some of the roads were absolutely treacherous. And so we thought, right, actually, we need to get out of the mountains because for the next 10 days, it's snowing a lot. So we actually ran to the coast. It was still snowing right up to the water's edge. So I think it's in those sort of harsh times when you've got continuous snow that you really sort of start to think about your needs. And I suppose in one respect, we didn't have to use electricity to cook on or for our heating. So that was good.
Yeah.
And what refrigerator are you using?
So we've got we put a new fridge in actually. It's a Vitrifrigio. I think that's how you pronounce it, Vitrifrigio. Takes about 65 watts. It's got a small freezer compartment, plenty big enough for our needs.
So it's 150 liters.
Yeah.
So I think for 2 people, that's pretty good.
Probably our biggest. It's probably our biggest load though.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, it was a good addition. It was a good addition.
Do you have, of course, it's winter now, so you're probably not thinking about it, but in the warmer climates, do you have anything set up for AC or for cooling?
No, well, one of the concerns we had when we bought the truck was that there's no AC anywhere. There was no AC in the cab, and that was a big issue for us.
Oh.
We spent a long time because, of course, these vehicles, when this vehicle was built in the UK, nobody put air conditioning into vehicles, particularly not snowplows. So we did a lot of research when we bought it to see if we could get a belt-driven air conditioning system in off the alternator, but it just wasn't possible. It was very difficult to identify the parts, and to work out how they would actually fit into the engine that we've got, and it just turned out to be not feasible. So we had a system put in the roof that runs from the engine batteries, which we haven't really tested yet because it just hasn't been hot enough. And in the back, we have no air conditioning. So our plan is to be out of Turkey and back into Northern Europe really before the summer gets too hot, I think.
Yeah, so we've been in Turkey before in the summer. I mean, it's you're talking 45 degrees. Nobody wants to be, even if you have AC, it can be unpleasant. So we just try and plan our trips around that. But it was certainly, it very nearly stopped us from buying the truck. I mean, we must have spoken to every retrofitter for air conditioning specialist up and down the country. We would have taken the vehicle anywhere to try to get the AC fitted to the cab, but we had to go with a roof-mounted Webasto system in the end. So not ideal, but at least we have something.
And if that doesn't work, there's always a 12-volt fan and a squirty bottle of cold water.
There you go. That's awesome. Do you guys have or use any specific recovery gear that might be good tips for our listeners? Again, you were talking about a list of upgrades. I mean, it's on the list. I mean, the vehicle isn't fitted with a winch. It's something that I desperately would love to fit. But we have sand ladders. We have a 14-ton tow strap. We have a shovel. All the sort of basics, I suppose, is what we have. I wouldn't say we have anything specialist. If there's one thing that we've learned on our travels is when you go to these far-flung countries, people are amazing. And I think even with social media these days, there is always somebody that will make a call and turn up with a digger, a bulldozer, a tractor, something to pull you out. Yeah, it's a funny one because we want to go off the beaten track and we have done, and then suddenly you think, wow, if we were stranded here, it would be a problem. So yeah, we just try and use our sort of gut instinct sometimes. And I was very fortunate. Whilst I was in the army, I spent 2 years teaching cross country driving in trucks, and we must have sank, drowned, rolled, countless vehicles, and I've taken a lot away from that as well. So it's about understanding the vehicle's capabilities, but ultimately, I think you can have what looks like hard ground, but it can be a crust, and you can go through it up to the axles, and you're going nowhere. So, yeah, it's always a learning.
What's one thing you find indispensable either on or in your vehicle?
Do you know, we were we were laughing about this question earlier, trying to sort of puzzle out. Okay, I mean, I think, you could say things like hot water, but that they're just, for me, they're things that I have to have. One of the best things that we fitted, that has been another game changer and has changed the way that we travel, is a compost toilet. So coming from that sort of motorhome scenario where you have the Thetford, the pull-out sort of cassette toilet where everything goes into the same box and you have to find a specialist place to empty it, we now have a separating compost toilet that keeps the wee and the poo separate, and it is just so easy to get rid of the waste. It's amazing. Yeah. We love it.
And the mattress.
Oh yeah, and our bed. We upgraded the mattress when we moved in to the truck, and it makes, I don't know, maybe I'm just at that sort of age where getting a good night's sleep is really important, and I want to be comfortable.
I think look, everybody can have a bad day, and we like to hike and we like to do, activities. But some days, whether it's a hard drive or, some days just knowing that you've got that comfortable bed to get into at the end of the day, it is just an amazing feeling. And we always, every time we get into this bed, we're like, oh, this is money well spent. So yeah, a good mattress helps.
It's a real leveler, isn't it, living in a truck? Because suddenly you realise all the things that you maybe thought were indispensable beforehand actually really are totally indispensable. Are totally dispensable. You don't need them at all. And for us, the fact that life has come down to being able to dispose of our bodily fluids and get a good night's sleep makes me chuckle.
That's awesome. Tell us about the mattress. That's one thing that we're currently in the deciding factor on. What have you guys found that's so comfy?
Well, I don't know if you have these mattresses in the States, but we bought something called an Emma mattress. It's a big thing in the UK. And when we were back in the UK last year, we stayed with some friends and we slept on a bed that had one of these mattresses. It's like a hybrid sprung mattress with memory foam. And I mean, it was just the most amazing experience. It's like sleeping on a cloud. And we left saying, okay, we're going to get one of those for the truck. And we managed to find enough space. There was a little bit of cabinetry that was in the truck in a really awkward place that we took out, and it meant that we could put a king size in instead of a double. And then we bought one of these mattresses, which is the heaviest thing known to man. But yeah, it's been incredible.
It's about 70 kilograms, so it's pretty heavy.
And what's the name again?
Emma, EMMA.
Put that on the list.
I would agree. Being able to extract your bodily fluids and having a good night's sleep, I am 100% with you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know, Chris, we've only just met.
Well, so far it's going pretty good.
Is there anything you packed that you absolutely needed and then never ended up using?
Yeah, do you know, when we very first moved into our first motorhome, I don't know why I felt the need to take a pair of espadrille high heels with me, just in case I got invited to a wedding or something, when we were on the road.
And a mulberry handbag.
Yeah, well, they lasted for about 3 months and then they got chucked out.
Yeah.
I think when we bought this truck, because it actually is a little bit smaller than what we'd had before, we really took the opportunity to sort of downgrade and everything that we had with us, and we basically said, look, if we haven't used it in 3 months, it's not coming with us. And I still think we probably have too many clothes, to be honest. We live and die in the same things that are comfortable, wash quickly, dry easily, like everybody else really. I've stopped worrying about what I look like.
I think one of the best things that we did actually, before we headed off on our travels, we pretty much ditched most of our clothes, not just to wear clothes, and we bought technical clothing. I mean, I had lots of technical clothing anyway because I like to walk and cycle and so on. But we bought some sort of casual wear that was technical so that we could wash it. It would dry really quickly, and it'd be multi-use, if you like. So we could wear it going out, and we could layer up and excuse me. And it was the best thing that we did, because especially on the road, trying to keep your clothes sort of warm and clean and so on, to dry them quickly, can be a bit of a pain sometimes.
And how do you manage your mail?
Well, we're really lucky actually. My mum she's my secretary. She gets all of our post. She opens it. She photographs it. She WhatsApps it to me, and then I tell her what to do with it, which is usually put it in the bin.
It's awesome.
Nice.
That's like one thing that we're kind of struggling with as well, trying to figure out how we're going to do that.
There are sort of places that you can, there's something in the UK called boat mail. And they will sort of open it for you and look after it. But to have a vehicle registered in the UK, you have to have a residential mailing address. You can't use like one of these virtual sort of schemes. But it also means we can maintain a financial footprint in the country where we can still vote. So that's really important.
And how much pre-planning do you do each day?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. I think we're always, we're looking for the next place to stay, but we're also thinking about where we can get water, what's happening with the weather, because of the size of the truck. Can we get to the place that we want to get to? What's happening around there that we might want to go and look at and see. So I would say probably between us, probably a good couple of hours a day of sort of, research. I quite like to understand the history of where we're going and, try and sort of seek out little snippets of interest, things that might not be immediately obvious about where you're visiting that are interesting or help to paint a picture of the place.
I think when we first set off, we, like lots of people, you have to see everything. Everything's at 100 miles an hour. You're up early, you're out hiking, right, next place, and you're trying to fit it all in. And you race around, and it's taken us a long time just to slow down and really appreciate what's around us. And I think one of the things that really used to annoy me is driving past somewhere and then thinking, no, we've missed that. We've driven past that. And you're maybe, 300 miles, 1,000 miles down the road by this stage when you realize. And I think over time we've come to really, right, let's do the research because we don't want that to happen again. So we do tend to put in quite a bit of research, I have to say.
Yeah, makes sense. When you go through somewhere, you could totally bypass something and not even realize it was there. And it may have been pretty awesome to see it. And by stopping to do that research first, that totally makes sense. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you guys do anything specific for navigation, like GPS or an app on your phone? What's working for you?
We have a truck sat nav that we can configure to the size of the vehicle. Although to be honest, I mean in Turkey it doesn't really seem to make any difference because there are very few restrictions here in terms of weight, and I think we've only come across one bridge that we couldn't get under, and we tend to use Google Maps a lot actually.
We tend to sort of run two navigation systems at one time. It's sort of a checks and balance. And we always look at the route before we actually set off in some detail. Again, sometimes there's no choice. Sometimes we're doing these crazy roads up mountains, lots of switchbacks. And, you've got to factor in fuel economy and, especially in the winter, you've got to think about snow on the roads and altitude. So I suppose when you're in a slightly bigger rig, all of that plays a bit more of an important part in your sort of day-to-day travel. So we tend to sort of run Google Maps as well. One, because it's current. Our truck sat nav is actually very good. It was a really cheap unit that we bought. We've had really expensive units. I would say there's no difference. So from a sort of a £1,500 unit to a £100 unit, I would say they're pretty equal. So
okay,
and it works really well, having those two. And we just sometimes, if we're not sure, we'll just pull in, have a little look, and make a decision to go left or to go right.
You sort of develop an instinct after a while that when the one of the sat navs is saying go that way and the other one's saying go that way, you can sort of, it becomes, it's worth stopping and looking at the actual road and thinking, because we've been caught out, we've been through, well, one year we were in Spain and we had to end up going all the way through a Spanish village completely in the opposite direction to the one-way system because we wouldn't have fitted round the corners of this tiny little village the way our sat nav was trying to tell us to go. So you sort of you develop that instinct after a while of don't go down there, because if you go down there you're not coming out.
Chris, all I can say is it's divorce material. Sat nav, navigation. Men and women.
We can go that way or that way, dear. Which way are we going?
It's a disaster.
That's so true.
And when you've got two people who are right, it just doesn't work, So,
yep, I can appreciate that equally as much.
Yeah. See, we're laughing now, but guaranteed tomorrow when we're on the road. But anyway, let's quickly move on.
That's awesome. What are you guys using for cell service? What works there in the UK?
Oh, well, as you probably know, we had this horrible thing called Brexit happen. And that has sort of caused an awful lot of problems for using UK mobile data in Europe. So it used to be before that when we were part of Europe, you could use your data anywhere, and then Brexit happened. And so now almost all of the big providers in the UK, if you have a contract with them, are limiting what you can use overseas. And of course, we're blogging, we're vlogging. We're doing a lot of research. We're using a lot of data. So we've just given in, really, trying to use UK data, and we just buy local SIM cards wherever we are. Data in Turkey is really cheap. So you can get about 100 gig here for about 25 quid. So that's not a problem. But in other countries, it's really expensive. So we just accept it's part of the costs of being bloggers, really.
And we try and manage it. I think what happens is, and I think we've all become maybe a little bit complacent about data and unlimited Wi-Fi, unlimited data. And when you're in a house, you know, and you've got that set up, you just think, oh, it's easy, it's always there, and you just use whatever. You don't actually know what you're using because it's unlimited. Suddenly, when you come away and you're working with big files and, you know, everything is internet based, you think, wow, we're actually using quite a lot of data. And when you're paying for it, I mean, certain countries in Europe, it's really expensive. So we do have to sort of manage it pretty carefully. And sometimes, you know, if we're in a hotspot or a cafe or, you know, dare I say it, even a campsite where there's free Wi-Fi, yeah, we tend to sort of use it, you know.
And then do you guys use, I'm not sure if you do over there, like an inReach or a spot for emergency communication as kind of a backup plan?
No, I mean, there is a scheme here where mobile phones will work as long as you've got power. Whether you've got a signal or not, you can always call an emergency number. But no, we don't have anything other than that.
Okay.
One of the things that we have talked about, and one of the things that we will consider if we go further afield is a satellite phone. But at the moment, we don't feel like we need that. So that's where it's at, yeah.
So give us a picture on your kitchen setup and one of your favorite recipes.
Okay, so we have...
Well, you got to give the backstory, first of all. The backstory when we lived in a house.
Why?
Well, it's relevant.
Okay.
Friday night.
Oh, well, that's the recipe, but the kitchen setup. Lisa was asking about the kitchen setup.
Oh, right, okay.
So we have a
Take turns now.
4. Yep. We have a 4-ring gas hob, so it's like a full oven with an oven and grill that's all gas run. I mean, to be honest, we don't use the oven that often. It gets quite hot in the truck, you know, if the oven's sort of going on for an hour or so. So we tend to cook mostly on the hob top. In the summer, we always cook outside. So we have a little pull-out sort of cooking area with a gas grill on there. So we, you know, if it's not raining, we'll always cook outside. We've got quite a good storage space in the kitchen. And when we moved into the truck, we converted one of the cupboards that was just an empty cupboard. There were no shelves or anything in it. And we put some pull-out drawers in there so that we've got a sort of a small larder area. We added some wine storage, which was really important. And when we spoke to the guy that we bought the truck off and said, you know, what do you use for a bin? And he said, oh, I just hang a bag off the table. I said to Phil, no, we have to have a proper bin. So we put a bin in there as well, like a slide-out bin. I mean, it's a good little cooking space, and we've got a flip-up worktop that flips up in front of the main sort of habitation door to give us a bit of extra space to cook. And actually, it works really well for us. I think we've kitted it out in exactly a way that works for the way that we cook. There's probably only room for one of us to cook at a time. So we sort of have a routine, you know, one cooks, the other washes up. Phil cooks, we cook equally, I would say. We share that chore. In terms of favourite dishes, the backstory is that when we lived in a house and we were both working, our come down on a Friday night was a curry. And I would make a chicken biryani, which is a curry where the rice and the chicken is all mixed in the same dish. So you can make it in one pot. And we would have that with a gin and tonic on a Friday night. And that was our sort of come down from the work week, if you like.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
We might even have 2 gin and tonics.
Yeah, we might. And, we still do that now. On a Friday night is curry night. And it's such an easy dish to make because it all just goes into one pot. So it's perfect for the truck. It just gets dished out into a couple of bowls. If we can get fresh herbs, we think we're lucky. But we've always got gin, so we're happy.
I think it's something bizarre. There is something bizarre about that. That routine from your working days, and that Friday night. That's sort of the Friday night and the Sunday night. Friday night is like the end of the working week. If you do a 9 to 5, sort of Monday to Friday. And then the Sunday night, obviously going back to work. It's bizarre, even though we've not been doing that routine, that type of work for the last almost 4 years. It's still there. We're still conscious, and I think we're still grateful that we've got
that we
freedom.
Don't have to go to work.
We don't have to do that. So we sort of mark it as a bit of a celebration, really.
Yeah, super smart. So road stories are always a super favorite. What's a favorite road story of yours, and maybe a situation you guys were nervous going into and how it turned out for you?
Well, I think we spent the winter in Morocco a couple of years ago, it's an amazing country. It was warm, and we did some fantastic hiking. We had some friends come out to visit us. We had a great trip. We were coming up the Atlantic coast, sort of making a slow meander back to Spain, really, where we're very lucky. We have a small house in the mountains that we can sort of get to if we ever need to. And Phil was planning on doing a week of kite surfing. We were stopped in this spot where the weather was going to be perfect, the wind was just right, and then the pandemic started to appear on the news. COVID started to become the headlines, and people were talking about it. And I said to Phil one night, I think maybe we should try and get back to Spain. I think Italy had just closed the border, and I was starting to feel a little bit concerned about it. So we made the decision that we would not stop. So Phil missed a week of kite surfing, which he's never forgiven me for.
Izzy made the decision that we should go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I had waited 2 weeks for the wind to be right for the kite surfing.
So.
And Izzy she just pulled the rug from under my feet.
And I'm really glad I did. So we got back to Tanja Med, which is the port in northern Morocco that would take us back across to Spain. And the boat that we were trying to get onto had been cancelled, and then the next boat was cancelled, and the next boat was cancelled. And there was a lot of people around, milling around. Nothing was very clear what was happening. And somebody from the ticket office came to knock on the door of our motorhome. We were in a van then, and said, do you want to get on the next boat? And we said yes. He took our passports and our tickets, took them away. I think we gave him, I don't know, what was the equivalent of maybe $20. And he came back and said, okay, go and get in the queue now. You're on the boat. And we got on the boat. We got off in Spain. It was late at night. We found a lay-by and we went to bed. I woke up the next morning, looked at the news, and the border had closed with Morocco, and we had literally got the last boat out. We were literally on that last boat before Morocco shut the borders, and there were queues of people in trucks and motorhomes trying to leave, and they all just got stuck there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it was pretty horrible. The facilities were really poor. There was nowhere for them to go. It was a real escape story.
We had actually, on our travels in Morocco, met various Dutch families, and they all had young kids, and preschool. And we'd met them at the port, and they were meant to be on the same ferry as us originally, sort of 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then it just kept getting pushed back. And then it got to the point where I think it was about 7 o'clock at night. They said, look, it's getting too late for us. The kids are tired. We'll get the boat in the morning. We're going to go to a campsite for the night, and, we'll pick it up tomorrow morning. Of course, they didn't. They weren't able to, and they were stuck, and we couldn't believe it. And they could have been on the boat as well. So, I mean, know lots and lots of people who were stuck there for months. So, I would have been quite happy actually.
Yeah, kite surfing.
I think Izzy was, she really wanted to get back, and I was really not happy. Was a
No, I think I could just see what was coming. And I had that sort of I think a lot of people at the time had that feeling if they just wanted to get home.
Yeah. God, it's crazy what's happened since.
It is.
Yeah, no kidding. So the impossible question, what are one or two places that really stick out to you that you guys have been that are kind of favorites that you look back on, and what made them so special?
For me, it's got to be Morocco. We've been to Morocco. I know we've just been talking about Morocco, but we'd been to Morocco about 4 times or 5 times previously, as tourists, sort of flying in and doing the tourist thing. But the last time we had been there, we had literally spent 3 months there, and just before we crossed the border, we were contacted by a New Zealand couple who said, "Look, we've got a year, we're traveling around. We see on your social media that you're going to Morocco. We'd like to tag along. Is there any chance we can meet up?" We said, "Yeah, no problem." So we met them. We really liked them. And we were parked up in the port car park. We got a knock on the door, and this other New Zealand couple introduced themselves. And well, the 6 of us, honestly, we became the best friends, and we all went to Morocco
in a convoy.
And so the 4 of them had never been before. So we went in this convoy. We were, oh yeah, we'll lead the way. We've been there before, and well, I better let Izzy tell the story.
Well, we ended up leading the way, trying to take them through a Medina, in an old walled city, and got stuck on a hill, and we all had to back down in convoy down this hill that we had led them up, that we couldn't actually get to the top of because it was so steep. No. It was not our finest hour.
I think if I could just try and paint a picture here, we went through this little Moroccan village, through the street that got narrower and narrower and steeper, and then it became sort of gravel, and then to the point where it became about a 1 and 2 gradient. So the wheels are spinning. By this stage, I was being a bit of a
man.
No, I'm getting up the hill.
Easy.
I'm getting up the hill regardless. And so the wheels are spinning. Izzy's absolutely clenching the seat. And I get about 90% up the hill, and then realize at the top there's this tiny little street, which if we'd have gone on to, we would have ground out anyway, because it was a crazy setup. So I put the brakes on, and they were just about holding on the gravel. So I said to Izzy, "You better get out." And the local people didn't blink an eye, because they had seen it almost every day. "Oh yeah, people always come up here.
They always get stuck."
No one had, they don't put signs out, "Oh, they're always getting stuck. It's fine. Just go down this way." So we're in convoy, and our New Zealand friends are right behind us. I mean, bless them. They put their trust in me.
Yeah, wrongly.
And I honestly, I was so sheepish. We had to reverse all the way down and drive up the other way. I mean, it probably took about an hour to sort this out. So
we did laugh about it later, though.
Yeah,
over a glass of wine.
Our New Zealand friends always mention the hill. So yeah. So.
And nobody could bother to put up a sign?
No.
This is Morocco,
nuts.
though.
Yeah, they're just but that's what Morocco's like. They're just easy come, easy go. But yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Anything else besides Morocco?
Yeah, for me, I absolutely love Norway.
Nice.
There's just the clean mountain air. The scenery is spectacular. It's not like anywhere else in the world. It really is breathtaking. Just the colours, the sharp sort of blue and the lime greens of the fields, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I think if you really want to go there, I mean, some people go there in the winter, and I am talking about overlanding rigs go there that are really well set up, and they will do some time there. but you do have to be prepared. I mean, the vast majority of people go there in the spring, when it's, a bit milder, the snow's melting, and you can actually access places, because it really is extreme. So I suppose it's equivalent of Alaska.
Yeah.
Sounds really nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It sounds gorgeous. So of all these different experiences that you've had, what would you say the number one biggest challenge you've had to overcome is?
I mean, I think there's the whole thing about, we sold everything that we owned, and we sort of gave up the life that we knew, and we literally sold our house on a Friday, and on a Saturday we were on the road. And of course, we'd taken holidays, vacations in motorhomes before. We were used to being on the move and traveling, and I had traveled a lot for my job. But yeah, I think living in a confined space with somebody who you're only used to seeing, at the start of the day, at the end of the day, and on a weekend, and then suddenly you're with that person 24/7. I think I think it has been a challenge, actually. Something that we've come through, and we've come out the other side of stronger. But I think spending a significant proportion of your time with one person, I think anybody would find that difficult.
I thought you were going to say the security that a house and a 9-to-5 job represents, because I know that's something that you sort of struggled with initially, was that you give up everything. We're in our 50s now, and we'd worked all our life, and you end up with this home and your car and your possessions, and in a way that really is your castle. It's your little bit of personal security, and for a lot of people, they'll retire, they'll have a pension, and so suddenly we had sort of given up that security. We had sort of stepped into the unknown, and we were fine with it. I think for a lot of people, it was more family and close friends who say, "Are you sure about this?" Is it, and we were absolutely sure. It was other people casting doubt. But something else actually on this question as well is travel fatigue, and it's a really. We've said this to a number of people who have asked us a similar question. There comes a point, I think, when you go on holiday, you either line a beach or you do an activity holiday, and for 2 weeks, you come back and you carry on. But when you do this every single day, it's not a holiday as such. It is a way of life, and you still have to do the washing. You still have to drive. You still have to wash the dishes and do all that sort of stuff. And I think after a while, and I don't care who you are, after a while, you do develop travel fatigue. And to get around that might mean sort of basing yourself for a month. And we've done that before.
Yeah, or taking a holiday, which sounds really bizarre. But, this is our life, that we work on the road as well. So we need a holiday just as much as anybody else. I know, but
you don't say that to people. When you say to people, "Oh, we need a holiday," what? Your life's one big holiday. And we're like, well, it's not actually, but, unless you do it, fellow travelers get it, full-timers. But I think for a lot of people, and I think the weather as well. I think the weather can play such a big part in your mood.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the transition.
The weather.
I think the transition from summer to winter is always difficult.
Right now, Chris is going crazy with overcast and rain. Like there's lack of sun.
Yes, I described to her yesterday, I feel like a grizzly bear that's been put into a fish tank and then put in a basement.
I think he needs a gin and tonic.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not good.
I've got a real mental picture now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you guys, absolutely right. Okay, so if you look at your overall setup, is there anything that you would change? Like if you were to rebuild your rig tomorrow and you could have a magic wand and some pixie dust and make it happen within a couple hours, is there anything that you would change with your overall setup?
Not that much, actually, no. I know Phil would like some of those additions that you talked about earlier, some of the recovery equipment and the fuel tank.
I think if if it could be rebuilt, I'd probably make it a bit lower.
Yeah.
It is lovely that we have so much light. But yeah, there's certain places where, it can be problematic. And so it's always in the back of your mind that, height is an issue. And I suppose from an overlanding point of view, keeping that center of gravity as low as possible is pretty key.
Okay. And then let's cover border crossings real quick. So of the border crossings that you've done over there, what tips do you have for people in doing border crossings, preparing for them, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think absolutely do your research, particularly at the moment, because, that the rules around what you need from a COVID perspective are changing all the time. So yeah, research is absolutely key. Be prepared. We actually bought a really small travel printer so that we could print all those things off, because I don't really want to be handing my phone to lots of different people for all the bits that they need these days. I think, when we came into Turkey, we had to have 4 or 5 different bits of paper, and it was so easy because we were just able to hand them over in a pack, but also be prepared. Get to the border as early as you can in the morning, because it can take all day. You can be kept queuing. And if you're panicking about getting into the country and finding somewhere to stay, or getting to your first, the first sort of spot you've identified where you can sleep, it doesn't help if you're stressing, and then you get a border guard who's a bit stressy as well, and suddenly you've got a situation where they don't want to help you, and you need their help. So I would say allow yourself plenty of time so you don't get into that stressed position.
I would also say check the government websites, but they in certain countries, I wouldn't say they're kept up to date. So things can change, and it could be a couple of days before it's actually changed on the website. So there's local knowledge as well. So it's about speaking to people. It's about, if you have a visa, don't leave it till the last day. So I think there's a number of things that need to be taken into consideration.
Any specific border crossings that come to mind, and experiences that you've had?
Yeah, when we came into Turkey,
I was going to say, let's be careful because we're still here.
Yeah, when we came into Turkey, we had to present our vehicle documents, and nobody likes the fact that we have a scooter on the back of the truck. They all think that we're trying to, import it to sell it. But we also have a private plate. I don't know if that's something you can do in the States, but in the UK, if you want a private plate on your truck or your vehicle, you can swap the plates over. And we don't quite know why, but there was something about the number plate on the truck. Either they couldn't work out that the one they thought was an I, or they couldn't find it on their system because the border guard was ringing people. He was getting his supervisor over to have a look. They were really puzzled. They spoke very little English. We don't speak Turkish. And after about, I don't know, half an hour, and the queue was building up massively, and we were just standing there. It was really cold, and he was getting really frustrated. And in the end, he just sort of threw the documents out and said, "You can go." And I actually think what happened was they couldn't work it out, and they gave up and let us in anyway. So I think we were probably quite lucky, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Forget it. Just go. Get out of the way. There's people waiting.
And that's exactly what it was like. I think they could see that we had this official vehicle registration document. That wasn't. I don't think that was in question. They just couldn't work out why it didn't quite marry up with their systems. And I think what we've realized since is we also had a problem because we bought a vignette, like a toll sticker to allow us to travel on the motorways, and you have to do that at the post office here. And we got stopped at a toll booth, and the system couldn't read our number plate, and I think it's because the one of the plate looks like an I, and I think that's what caused the problem at the border as well. But who knows? I don't know.
I would say, I think for me, if you go into North Africa, they're lovely people. The Moroccans, they're really, and the Algerians, they're really relaxed. but my goodness, when you go through their border crossing,
yeah,
you absolutely know about it. I mean, we had to go through a scanner. They scan the whole vehicle. And I mean, they've got the state-of-the-art equipment. You drive onto this platform, this huge scanner goes over your vehicle. And you're not allowed to take drones in, alcohol. I mean, people do take alcohol, and they're pretty cool with it. But wow, you've got to allow some time going through the Moroccan border control because they are so strict. I mean, the minute you get through, they're lovely. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it's give yourself plenty of time. Yeah, get there in the morning is a top tip.
And then anything specific for safety that you guys do?
Well, it's a real funny one, isn't it? Because I think if somebody wants to attack you, they're going to attack you. If you're talking about personal safety, we do have some what do you call it?
Pepper spray.
Pepper spray. We do have some pepper spray.
And a very heavy torch.
Yeah, but we used to carry other bits and pieces, but we don't anymore. I mean, in terms of, I suppose, security for the truck, all the doors, the habitation door certainly has a triple lock, and the cab doors they can be double locked, so they have two separate locks on each door, and then we have two separate locks as well on the little crawl through between the cab and the habitation space. So I think, we have toughened glass windows.
Sometimes at night we pull our steps in if we're not sure, but we haven't felt we've needed to do that very often. I really want to believe in the goodness of the human race, really. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's naive, but I don't think, we've been on the road for 4 years and we've, wild camped for most of that time, boondocking, I guess you guys would call it. And I've only ever felt unsafe once.
It's about your gut feeling. I mean, we have driven up to places before and thought, no, there's something not right about it. And we've moved on. So I think we're sort of wise enough now to look at somewhere and think yes or no. And again, we'll look at the reviews on, there's certain apps out there, Overlanding and so on, and we will read the reviews if we're not sure and think, actually, somebody's been robbed here in the last 2 weeks. This is not for us. So just use your common sense, I think.
Anything specific that you're doing to keep documents safe? So if you leave the vehicle for a period of time and you can't take all that stuff with you, any tips for keeping either documents safe or hard drives, computers, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, we have copies of all of our documents, in a Dropbox, on our phones.
Your mum's got
paper copies with my mum. But I am of the same opinion as Phil. Really, if somebody wants to get in, they'll get in, and if you hide a safe in a cupboard, they'll find it and rip it out anyway.
We did have a safe for the first, up until we bought the truck. We had a safe, and then we just made the decision when we got the truck. We thought, well, no, I don't know. We don't feel like we need it, so we can always get things replaced, and people can sort of rip the place apart if they really want to.
Yeah.
So there's nothing of any sort of real value. Not really. Original vehicle documents, if you haven't got those in certain countries, yes, it's a problem. But, we'll just sort of deal with that as and when.
Okay. And then personal health insurance. Do you guys have any tips there for folks in the UK and what's working for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we're very aware of. I mean, we're very fortunate that we've got the NHS, and I suppose as a result, we have a global health card, which is great, and we can get basic care when we're abroad in certain countries, reciprocal countries. But for example, once we go to Morocco or
once we come out of Europe,
then we need healthcare, and we have healthcare at the moment.
Yeah, we take out backpackers insurance. It's the easiest because of our ages. Sometimes we can only take it for a year, that's okay. We sort of go a year at a time. And we use a company called True Traveller. And they're really handy actually, because they don't mind if you don't start your journey in the UK. So you can take out insurance with them if you're already traveling, which is really helpful. Not all companies will let you do that.
Okay. All right. So that gin and tonic may come in handy about now. So I don't know if that's handy, but we're going to circle back around to couples on the road. Because it's not uncommon to have that mentioned as one of the bigger challenges that you have to overcome. So how have you found balancing life as a couple while you're spending 24 hours a day together?
Chris, it's hell. Absolutely. It really is.
Do you know, I think I think there's a couple of things really. I suppose our relationship has evolved. I think when you don't have work to hide behind, when you're with each other all the time, suddenly all the little idiosyncrasies of the person become highlighted, I suppose.
You've been very diplomatic there.
All
those little imperfections.
Yeah, but we both have them. They become highlighted and perhaps a little bit more obvious.
You told me I was perfect.
Oh, you are.
Okay. Yeah.
I think for me, there was when we first started to travel, I had a real felt a real loss of identity. I'd been in quite a senior role. I had a lot of responsibility. I felt like I was pivotal to quite a lot of people, people who reported to me, people who worked with me. And suddenly I lost all of that. And that was really tough. And one of the things that actually fell out of that was probably about 6 months in, I discovered that I was actually bored. It's really hard to say that. It sounds, all I'd wanted was to not have to go to work so I could read and kayak and walk and cycle and just have this amazing life. And suddenly that wasn't enough. But it wasn't enough. And my brain wasn't occupied, and that's why we started the blog. And so I think then we went through this period where our interests diverged a little bit, and I became very focused on working, and I put a lot of hours in, and I think Phil found that quite frustrating at times. So he took up a new hobby. He learnt to kite surf. He started to go out and sort of do more and more sort of extreme hiking, the sort of hiking I wouldn't want to do. And so I think we developed this sort of quite healthy relationship where we almost did separate things during the day and then came together in the evenings to talk about our day, I suppose mirroring almost a work life that we had before. But now Phil is focusing on YouTube, so we're sort of both working together really. We have back-to-back laptops, and we spend most of the day sort of talking about the business really, when we're not out and about sightseeing and doing all those other sort of travel-y things.
We never sit around. I suppose that's, to answer your question, I think it's really important that people have purpose, people have focus, people have an interest. I love to hike, and I love to cycle, but you can't do that sort of 24/7. And at some point, you're together, and it's great, and we're very fortunate. We're very like-minded,
and we like each other, and I think that does help.
Yeah, and it sounds really silly, but the number of people, ex-colleagues, friends, people I've met on the road who have said, absolutely no way could I do that with my wife. I love her dearly, but I just couldn't be cooked up in a tin box 24/7 with my wife. It would just drive us both crazy. And we do know of a few people that have actually gotten divorced, or a few people who've sold their house, bought a van, gone off, 3 months, 6 months later, that's it, come back, sold the van because it just wasn't for them. So
yeah, nothing wrong with that. If it works, it works.
I would say what it does do is it takes a lot of effort. Yeah, I think when you see people, when you see the socials, and you see Instagram, and the van doors are open and it's all idyllic, and
the sun's always shining, and
it's not like that in the real world. It really isn't. So, but it's good. Don't get me wrong. That's why we're still doing it. So.
Well, I'm fascinated by what you guys are doing, and doing your blog is really good. Instagram, I haven't checked out your YouTube yet, so clearly we're going to need to do that. So with working on the road, what are some tips that you've got that might be helpful for other people to balance work and travel at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really difficult one, because I probably, like every other blogger, thought, oh, I'll just do this and I'll make some money. And it really isn't that easy. You can't just do it. You have to work really hard at it. And it's taken me quite a long time to find the balance, to the point where I'd say probably the first year when I was blogging, I lost the essence of what we were trying to do in terms of travel, because I was so focused on a screen. And I think, yeah, I would say to people, yes, you need that startup period, but do you know, if you take a day off here, if you're not on social media for a couple of days, nobody cares. You know, don't lose the joy of being on the road and you know, learning about those different cultures and seeing all those different things in the need to be, I don't know, get followers or likes or subscribers or whatever, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. I think as well, it's a really interesting question, because we've met amazing people on the road, very, very interesting people. And we are all different. And I think that's what makes it fascinating. And there's many ways to live life on the road. And some people work on the road, or they work for a short period of time on the road, because they can work remotely on a laptop. Some actually, we've met people who actually house sit. So they might do that for 2 weeks, 2 months. And there's a couple of schemes in Europe where you can do that. And so they might have a van. And part of the balance, if you like, and it goes back to your last question, is that some people will actually go and house it, look after someone's dog. It could be anywhere in Europe. And it could be in an old farm building or an apartment. And they go there and they have, I suppose, a little bit of respite from life in a van. And so they're able to live in someone's house, enjoy having a bath, cooking, relaxing, getting to know, you know, a village, a town, a city. So I think there's something out there for everyone. You've just got to find what's right for you.
And what are you finding your average monthly budget to be? And are there any tips for our listeners on budgeting?
Yeah, so when we first started traveling, we were lucky enough to be able to live on Phil's military pension, which just about covered our monthly costs. But every time we had to pay for insurance or, you know, get a plane home or fix something on the van, that came from our savings. So we were living on about just over 1,100 euros a month at that stage. But it also meant that we had to make decisions about, you know, when we were visiting places, we couldn't always afford to, you know, pay to go into a museum or take a tour, which I think would have highlighted or certainly benefited us in terms of giving us more information about the place that we were visiting. So that was a bit frustrating. And one of the great things about the blog has been that it means that we have been able to increase our monthly budget. So we now live on about 1,500 euros a month. And the blog covers that extra cost, but it also covers all the annual sort of costs around insurance and tax and registration and those sorts of things that we were taking from our savings before. So I think, you know, you could do it for less than what we're spending. At the moment, it's quite difficult because the cost of fuel is so high. And that has really ramped up recently. And it's something we've sort of been talking about, you know, in terms of if it continues, what decisions we might have to make about where we travel to next. But yeah, I think somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 euros is a good budget.
And what provides you the most inspiration each day as you meet people and spend more time in nature?
I think it probably is other people, actually. You come to some of these countries where they have nothing, but they would give you everything. and they're so welcoming and interested in you as people. They take time to talk to you and find out about you. And
I think it's quite humbling, actually. We've been to places where it's hand to mouth. It really is in existence day to day. You know, women of 70 years old on donkeys,
kids begging in the streets,
gathering firewood, eating a really simple and humble diet. And yet they will come up to you in the morning with a tray of tea on a little glass cup, some fresh bread that's still warm. They will give you everything. And they probably look at us and think, well, it's so far beyond their reach. But they want to know about you. They want to know where you're from. They want to, and they're more about people. It isn't just about, oh, look at the truck, or look at, look what you have. They're interested in us and why we've come to the country. And I think probably more so in Europe, we sort of lost that a bit. Everything's very materialistic, and yeah, I think when you step into that environment, you really appreciate what life's about, and it's about people. And I love you mentioned nature there, but I think, look, I am a country lad. I can't help but I don't like the city. Izzy's sister used to live in London, and I'd be kicking and screaming, going to go and see her for a day or a weekend. I couldn't wait to get out of it. And so for me to be out hiking, and the more extreme, the better. So if I go somewhere and I summit this gorgeous mountain, I just want to sit there, have a cup of tea, look around me, and just think, yeah, this is what it's about for me. So yeah, if I'm in nature, I'm happy.
And what advice would you give your 10-year younger selves?
Use moisturizer.
Yeah.
And add it to gin and tonic nightly, and you'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gin and tonics.
I think, I don't know. I sort of want to say, why did we leave it so late? But the reality is we left it late because we wouldn't have been able to afford to do it when we were 10 years younger.
I would say, have a plan, but don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Because, it's the easiest thing in the world to put obstacles in your way. And we all do it. And it's what stops us from taking that step. And I just think, if that's what you really want to do, find a way to do it. And I know it's about funding it, and but there's many ways to travel if that's your thing. And
actually, once you take the leap, the things that you think that you thought matter cease to matter completely. Yeah. Have I got the right car? Am I wearing the right shoes today? Does my power suit tell my boss what I need it to tell him? It's all those sorts of things that you think are so important, and when you step away from that, you just realize it's all a nonsense, really.
But we don't need much, do we?
No.
We really don't.
Well, we've established all we really need is gin and a way to get rid of our bodily fluids, and we're happy.
Yeah.
And a good sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In a way, it kind of comes down to that. It's really basic.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know. Look, it's a really good question. I'm not sure there's one definitive answer. But I would say, don't overthink it. Izzy and I are both terrible for overanalyzing. We need to understand things, why, but how, and Izzy especially drives me insane sometimes, because she has to know every detail. Yes, but why is it not working? Well, and I'll explain it, and she wants more details. And it's just our nature. It's just our nature. It's just the way we are.
Chris is nodding his head. Yep.
Yeah, and so. Yeah, to anyone out there, I would say, and we've met lots of people who say, I'd love to do what you're doing, but I say, well, why don't you do it? Oh, yeah, the dog's not well, and
The thing is, it's not going to come and find you, is it? If you want to do something different with your life, you've got to take those positive steps to make it happen. And so maybe that's what I would say to my 10-year younger self. Don't wait for it to come and find you. If you want it, you have to make it happen.
And in reality, I would say it might not be the right time, but put a plan in place so that it can happen in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, or whenever the time is right for you, and stick to it.
If you could put any message on every billboard in Europe, what would it be?
I don't suppose I'm allowed to swear, am I?
Wow, that's like a...
You can.
I would be sticking a finger up to Brexit.
Wow, that was a real curveball there. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Wow.
And Russia.
Yes.
Yeah. In Europe. Oh, I don't know. I haven't got an answer for that. I want to have, but no. I'll have to think of it. Let's move on.
That's awesome. Anything that we've missed, guys?
I don't think so. No. It's been really interesting chatting about stuff because it really makes you sort of examine and think about how you feel about stuff that we don't always think about every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with a few fun facts about you. We may have already established that, but what's a favorite drink what's a favorite genre of music? And between the two of you, who's the best singer?
Definitely the 80s, and definitely not me. I'm tone deaf. I think I'm an amazing singer, but nobody else does, unfortunately.
Chris, I am long suffering, believe me with this. Right? When you're in a cab, all right, with a woman who wants to sing her head off, who tells herself she's amazing, we just got to turn the sound up, really. So Izzy loves the Dixie Chicks, so we love the Dixie Chicks and we love the 80s. So I think it's the go-to. So yeah, we do a lot of singing in the cab.
Lots of ABBA.
A few M&Ms, a few treats here and there in the cab, and we're happy. I think one of the things that we love is when we drive a road that we've never driven before, or we're heading east at the moment, hopefully towards Azerbaijan. We've never been there, and there's just something exciting about it.
Yeah,
it's
there
great.
is.
What's a favorite drink in the morning to get you going?
Tea.
Yeah, we're tea drinkers, both of us.
Good old-fashioned English-style tea, breakfast tea with one sugar and a drop of milk.
And a favorite beverage at night to wind down after a long day?
Well, it's a cross, really, between gin or wine. And we're struggling a bit with the wine in Turkey. It's not great.
We like red wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
There's always a bottle about somewhere.
Yeah.
And what's your best advice to aspiring overlanders and adventure enthusiasts listening right now?
I would say stop worrying about all the things that could go wrong and focus on all the things that could go right. Could change your life. It will change your life.
I think it's about the journey. One thing that we have learned is about taking your time, slowing down, and actually appreciating what's around you. So I think we were always guilty of it being about the destination. It isn't about the destination. So it's definitely about the journey.
That's how you get there.
So yeah, and people.
How can people learn more about you guys? Where's all the places to connect with you?
Yep. So you can find us. You can check out our blog, which is thegapdecaders.com. You can look at us on Facebook. We are Gap Decaders. You can join our Facebook group, which you'll find on the same page. You can check us out on Instagram. We are _gap_decaders, or you can find us on YouTube, the Gap Decaders. Gets a bit repetitive after a while.
So it sounds like it's pretty easy to find you.
Yes. I don't think there's anybody else with our name.
No, I don't think so. So any more information you'd like to give or useful resources that our listeners should be checking out?
Yeah, we love Park for Night. It's such an amazing resource. We find a lot of places to stay on Park for Night, and we're documenting, everywhere we stay, every laundry that we've used, every place we've been able to get water. We are putting that up on Park for Night. So yeah, it's a really great resource for Europe.
I would say as well we have people contact us from the States, from Australia, New Zealand, just looking for a little bit of advice. I would say to anyone, if you want any advice or any help, or just to pick our brains on anything, give us a call.
Mm.
Drop us an email. We're very happy to FaceTime and chat and give our time to people. So anytime.
That's awesome. So thank you guys so much for taking your time and being patient this morning. We greatly appreciate it. Safe travels and adventures to you. And we hope that maybe someday our paths cross again. You sound like a super fun couple that we would have a lot of fun with.
Guys, Chris, Lisa, it's been brilliant. We'd love to meet you on the road for a beer one day, or a gin.
Gin and tonic would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks,
Take care, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.